All right, welcome everyone. This is now session 8. So we're going to continue today on the exercise we started on Monday, which is the exercise at the end of the short exercises section here. So it's class exercise 1, which we call the simple house drawing. Now, what I'll get you to do, if you haven't already, I'll get you to just open up the PDF here, which is gives you some direction, not step-by-step instructions, but it gives you direction and some of the specifications of this particular building that we're creating. And if you can also just open up Revit and then find the file that you were working on in our last session called Exercise 1 Simple Building or Simple House. So in our last session we started a new project from a template. We saved it, gave it a name. We changed level names and a level height, and we added a non-story level called ground line. We then proceeded to create a new wall type called brick veneer 240 timber. In creating that new wall type, what was the change that we made to it?
Remove a layer?
Yeah, the cavity layer we changed. We just changed the cavity layer from 50 to 40. That was the only real change that we made. But we duplicated an existing wall type and created a new one called brick veneer 240 timber with an overall thickness of 240 millimetres. And yeah, just reduced the thermal air layer by 10 mil. So we then proceeded to draw the external walls, and against those external walls we put dimensions. And then I think the last thing I did was actually sort of just I quickly showed you how to actually sort of draw the internal walls without worrying about the room sizing. For the internal walls we used the stud timber 90 wall type. So that's our next task now, is to actually, if you haven't drawn the walls in, to actually draw the internal walls. But essentially the floor plan at this stage looks like this. So what I'm going to do is just show you, I guess, the approach I would take to actually change or adjust the room sizes to match the floor plan that I've got in the handout document. So if you can refer to, if you've got the document open, if you can refer to this page here. So this is the plan we're working to for the wall set out. Now, in doing the initial building set out for the external walls, I suggested that just draw the building just roughly, and then put a set of what I call working dimensions around the plan. So these are real dimensions. These are dimensions that we would use in our final floor plan. But I guess here I'm using them I call them working dimensions because they're going to assist me in the I guess in setting out the initial external walls. One of the things we did with the walls once we got the set out correct was we actually pinned them. Okay, do you recall me talking about pinning? Okay. So each of those external walls is pinned, which means that it won't move. Now, from here, and I demonstrated, I guess, how to very quickly just add the internal walls, not worrying about the position and so forth, but just to sort of build up the design, and I guess to ultimately place the walls in the correct position and get the correct room sizes. We use dimensions again for that purpose. Now the thing is that if you select one of the walls, Revit will give you these temporary dimensions, but as I've said before, I much prefer that that we actually put actual dimensions or use actual dimensions in order to actually move these walls and get the room sizes correct. So there's a couple of ways you can do that, and one of the quick ways of doing this, and it doesn't always work in every situation, but one of the quick ways of doing this is to actually use the Align Dimension tool up here, or on the Annotate tab, aligned here. Now, it's the Align Dimension, this tool here, that we use to generate these initial set out dimensions. So if you pick the Align Dimension, now you'll always be dimensioning to wall faces, so that's always set to wall faces. Now the default here is individual reference. This one here, there's the pick option. Now individual reference, and I'll just get you to watch this if you wouldn't mind, rather than doing it as I'm demonstrating. But with individual reference, the idea is to see how the wall face highlights. Okay, so when it highlights like that, and I left click, I can pick. That's my first dimension point. Okay, so the face of that wall. So we're going to wall faces. And I guess the thing is that as you're dimensioning, so you go to the inside face, and that's your first dimension. So the idea is to actually keep going, don't stop, just keep clicking. So each wall face will highlight, and when it does highlight, you can then click to select it. And what that does is then it builds the dimension set, okay? And the idea, I guess, when you're doing this is to sort of keep going and not stop.
So do you click on both sides of the wall?
Both sides of the wall, yes, yeah. Yeah, so so you see that what I've done so far is that I've picked up on the 240 wall on the outside, so both sides of that, so that's telling me now that that's 240 thick. I then go across to the next wall, which is 90 mil, and the dimension in between is giving me the room size. Now, when you're dimensioning like this, imagine that you're drawing a line through the building along this dimension line initially. Okay, so imagine a line sort of cutting through the building along the dimension line. So you follow that line, and whatever that line crosses, you actually dimension. Okay, and then you finally come to the outside wall on the right-hand side, on the eastern side, and click that. So every time your wall face pre-selects, you actually click to place the dimension. Now, when you come to the end of the dimension line, okay, you can keep going but if you want to actually stop and produce that dimension set, what you then do is you just click anywhere in the free space out here and click to place it. Now when you move up, if you've got a dimension, in this case above the one I've just created, when you approach that dimension, you'll feel it stick. It'll actually sort of stick or lock in. Okay. Now, it may be a little bit hard to see, but at a certain point, you'll feel it sticking. And I don't know if you can see just to the right of my cursor there, I've got a little faint blue dashed line. I don't know if you can see that.
Yep.
Now, when you're doing it for yourself, you'll see it on your own screens. You'll actually see at a certain point, you'll feel it stick. And if you move left and right, you'll actually see a blue dashed line. And that blue dashed line is indicating the correct position of that second dimension. And what that allows you to do, it allows you to get your dimension spacing correct. So if you're creating a third and a fourth set, each set of dimensions is the same distance from the previous. And that's really important for visually for your set out, so that all of your dimensions are consistent on all four sides. So it's known as dimension snap spacing. Okay, dimension snap spacing, and it's a setting within the dimension type or style. Okay, I won't sort of go into it too deeply at the moment, but just to know that this feature exists.
Dimension snap.
Dimension snap spacing. Yeah. So when you see that blue dashed line, when you feel it stick, that's when you actually left click to lock in the dimension line. Okay. So then I hit escape and I've produced a set of dimensions that picks up on these walls here. Now these walls here are known as intersecting walls. Okay. And I guess the thing is that the dimensions I've just placed, again, if you can imagine that I've drawn an imaginary line through this part of the building here, and anything along that line gets dimensioned. So what we do essentially is that we add a dimension set on each side to pick up these walls here that are intersecting. Okay, so on this side here, for instance, you would start down here, first pick, second. So just clicking either side of the wall. When it pre-selects, you know you've got that, that's what you're going to pick. Okay, so there's your dimension set. So just move over here and feel it locking in. You might be able to see that blue dashed line there. Left click and place the dimension set. Okay, so the spacing between that dimension and that dimension, it's important that you actually get these consistent. Okay.
So we pick systems, and it gives us the align. Do we actually click on that align, but it's aligned dimensions? Do I have to click it twice?
The dimensions that we're placing are classified as aligned dimensions. So you can pick up the aligned dimension from the annotate tab, or you can actually pick it directly up from here from the quick access toolbar.
Yep. So we try that. We click on that, we go to the bar, click on there, it doesn't create our dimension.
Well, you
Obviously doing something wrong. I'm trying to find out what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah, so okay, so that's a quick set of dimensions on the western side. So on the eastern side, initially we place a dimension or start the dimension here, inside here, and finally down here. Yeah, so on the western side, you're sort of picking up on the external wall on the north side and on the south side, plus the intermediate wall here. See there's the blue dashed line there. See how I sort of move across until that appears. See the dashed line there, and that's when you click to place.
Did you want the 240 on it? You wanted to start on the inside or the outside? You stuck outside.
Yeah. Well, you may as well start on the outside in each case, and then go to the inside of the 240, and then either side of the 90, and then either side of this 240 here. Okay, so to include the 240 at either end. Now, when you're, and I guess the thing is, if we go back to the this page here, see the wall set out here. Now the dimensions that you're producing at the moment are the dimensions that are appearing here in this set out plan. So this is the one I did first across here. Then I've gone through and added this one up here. On the right hand side I've put this one in through here. And on the southern side of the building, just be guided by this one here. See the dimensions across here. So these dimensions here reflect, so if you actually put an imaginary line through the building through here, that's these dimensions down here.
So if the blue line doesn't appear, perhaps we haven't got our first measurement far enough away. Would that be a possibility?
Yeah, well, I guess the thing is that you're aiming to sort of pick the wall faces, and when you sort of right over the wall face, it will either highlight blue or red. It depends what you've changed your pre-selection colour to be. In this case, mine's red. Yeah, so what I would suggest is with your dimension sets initially, can you just move them out a fair distance from the plan itself? So don't have your dimensions too close to the building itself. Just allow some space around the building. Now, if you want to move your dimensions out, the best way to do that is to select them with a crossing window, like so. So select them with a crossing window and either drag them, so click and drag them, but keep the sets together, or select them and using your shift and down arrow or up arrow, just move them out of the way. So give yourself plenty of space around the building itself.
So did you just drag
Yes, so having a look at the layout here, so we've got the main dimensions here. So there's a couple of smaller dimensions. This one here, see this one here. This dimension set here is picking up on the position of the toilet wall. Okay, through here. So that's just a smaller dimension set. And there's also a dimension set over here on the right that's picking up on the width of these rooms here, plus the width of the corridor or hall here. Okay, so it's just cutting through the building through here. This one is cutting, this one here is cutting through the building through here. Okay, so if I was to perhaps just draw a couple of reference planes just to show you where we're cutting through. So cutting through the building there. Sorry, my apology. So cutting through the building there, and also cutting through here. So I'll generate those two dimensions. So again, from here to here, through here and here, and this one and this one. And on this side, over here.
Minimal lines to make the point. Is that the idea?
Okay. I'll just bring these dimensions in a little bit closer, just so you can see what I'm doing, and I'll move them out again. So we've got enough dimensions now to help us to set the wall positions internally and also get the room sizes correct. So if you can just take a moment, just have a look at what I'm doing here. So the thing is that we've got our dimensions in place now. So the approach that I would take is to obviously working from left to right. So I'm going to sort of focus or work on this room first. Now the width of the internal width of this room needs to be 3200. So for that to happen, to get that to 3200, what do I have to do?
Take it out.
I have to move a wall, don't I? Yeah. So to move the wall, I have to do what?
You can click in the top, can't you, at the 2870 and push it to...
Well, which wall will move first?
No, you can't click directly on the dimension.
You click on the wall to move.
No. So the thing is that that to change the size of a room, something has to move.
Yeah.
The wall has to move. So to move the wall, we have to select it. So it becomes an edit function. So in selecting the wall, the dimension activates. See how the dimensions, this one is now active and this one is active. So I can now click directly on the dimension. Okay. So but you can't click on the dimension first. You've got to select the wall first, which activates the dimension, then click the dimension and then update it. Okay, so 3200. So it moves the wall to the right in this case. So the thing is that I've still got two active dimensions, but don't be tempted to actually go to the second dimension and update that, because if I change that to 1010, it then
Squishes that back.
Yeah, it changes that one. And I can do that all day and I won't get anywhere. You know, I can do that all day. I can change that one to 3200 and that one's 990. You know. So the thing is that what you do is you work on this one first and then click away from it to deselect it and then pick the next one, which activates that dimension. Okay, so that next one becomes 1010. All right. Yes, this one's active, but we don't be tempted to click on that one. Just deselect and go to the next one and change it. 2400. Now, if the overall set out is correct, then that one should be 2190, which it is. Okay, so those walls there are all now, those 3 walls there are now correct. So it's just a matter of sort of systematically going around. So what I might do next perhaps is say, okay, well, let's have a look at this wall here. Okay, this dimension here, which is this wall here. So that needs to be 1500. So select the wall. It allows me to update the dimension and type that in directly. Okay, so I then perhaps will have a look at this wall here. Okay, so that wall there, or that the internal dimension from there to there is 2000. It's currently 2540. So I select the wall and then click on the dimension and make that one 2000. So from here, this wall here needs to be moved, so that one's not correct. So this one here, the room size here, the depth here, internal measurement is 3600. It's currently 2930. So select that wall because it has to move upwards in this case. Select the dimension and then change it to 3600. So yeah, so having moved that wall, I can check this dimension here needs to be 1430, which it is. So that's the distance between this wall and this wall. So that's okay at 1430. This one's okay at 3600. So that size of the room there. And I can then, I guess, look at the location of these 2 walls. So those 2 walls, so these ones here. So each of those the rooms respectively internally, so this one is 4.3 and this one is 3 metres, and the hall or corridor ends up being 1590. All right, so this one becomes 4300. Deselect, this one becomes 3000. Deselect, and this one is 1590, so that's good. So all that's left to do is this one here. So this this room here internally is 5180. So we go to this dimension here, click on it, and change it to 5180, which makes this one 4800. So having done that, I'll just reselect my dimensions and just move them out of the way. So that completes the wall set out. Okay, so now that you've done your wall set out, the next thing to do is move on to the next page, which provides you with guidance on adding your doors and windows. So I guess in the first instance, what I would suggest you do is, and we've gone through this in the previous exercise, whereby we have to actually load in a few window and door families, and once those families are loaded into the project, we then create some custom sizes, and then place the doors and windows into the walls. And I guess initially, yes, they have to be put into exact locations, but initially just place them in the wall in their approximate positions. And the idea is that once you've put them into the walls in the approximate positions, you then run a dimensions, you actually create another set of dimensions that actually dimensions from the outside wall on the left-hand side and goes to the edge of each window and door.
Oh, so you do the same as you do with your walls, and then you can
Yeah.
adjust them yourself, so it doesn't matter if they're not exact.
No, so the idea is that that I guess that's the real sort of the way we operate Revit, is that we just draw it up roughly, put dimensions against everything, and then use the dimensions to place the objects in their correct position. It doesn't matter whether they are a wall or a door or a window. So once you've loaded your families in, you then create your custom types, place them in the walls, and then create your dimension set as you did with your intersecting walls. And when you select each of the doors or windows, so when you select the window, for instance, it'll activate a couple of dimensions, and then you can use those dimensions to position your door or window. Okay, and I guess it's a twofold thing, that you're actually creating your dimensions that you'll ultimately use, I guess, for your final floor plan, but at the same time you're using those dimensions to actually position objects, so they can be used for two purposes. What I would suggest is that firstly, with your windows and doors, what I would do is actually go through and systematically load in all the families that you need. Okay, so you've got this one here, which is double hung 3LT. You've got a family called awning 2LT, a sliding 2L, an awning 1L, and then load in your door families, single panel 2. I'm pretty sure the single flush is already in the project. You'll have to load in single timber frame as a family, and also a bifold 4 panel. So load all the families in all at once, and then go back over and create your types. So again, working from the Insert tab, Load Family. Initially you're going to be working with Windows, so go down to the Windows folder. So you're looking for double hung 3LT, so that one there. So highlight that one and click Open. Now with double hung 3LT Oz.
There's two.
So when the specified types dialog opens, it doesn't matter which one, just choose the first type in each one. So just choose the first type here. It doesn't matter what size it is, because you're going to make a copy of it anyway and make new new types, new sizes.
So we just press OK to open that.
Yeah, just click OK.
Oh yeah.
So that's now loaded in the first window type, or family I should say. Then go to load family again. Still loading windows, and the next one is awning 2LT, this one here. So I'm just working from the list here. So we've done the double hung 3LT. We're now looking for the awning 2LT. Okay, open, and then just go for the first one in the list. Just highlight that one and click OK. Load family.
I've got 2 L and 2 LT. Oh no, 2 Ls and 2 LTs. Okay.
There's a 2L and a 2LT. So the next one is a sliding 2L.
So that was a 1570, was it? Doesn't matter.
Don't worry about the sizing at this stage, just load a type in.
Yep.
So sliding 2L, this one here is the next one.
T standing for?
Just go OK. So
Yeah.
the first one doesn't matter.
Yeah, so it's mainly just to get the family into the project in each case. And then finally, awning 1L. So that's the windows. We can then have a look at loading the doors. So load family.
So we just got to get out of Windows, I guess.
Yeah, no, if you want to go back to your, if you want to see the entire folder set,
Metric library.
yeah, just scroll down and click metric library down here. And then have a look, just go down to doors, double click that. The first one is a single panel 2, this one here. So single panel 2. With your doors, what you can do is actually load them in all at once. So if I highlight single panel 2, I can then go up to single timber frame Oz and control click that. So I've now got 2 families selected.
Press Control once.
Control left click. So that means that you can just select more than one family. Bifold for panel. So control click that one.
Before I get to doors.
And I think that's it basically.
So we go open.
So it's mainly those 3, yeah, and then click open.
How do I get to the doors?
So if you've been successful in loading in the door and window families, if you click the door button, back architecture and door, in the type selector, you should be able to see bifold for panel, M single flush, which is already part of the project,
Oh yeah.
single timber frame, which is a new one that you've loaded in,
Yep.
and single panel 2. Okay. Now you can really please yourself. You can put the doors, add the doors first, or add the windows. It doesn't really matter. With your doors, however, you don't have to create any new types. Okay, so there's no new types to create for the doors. You just pick from the sizes that it offers you. So again, with your doors, all of these types and sizes are all standard. Okay, so there's no requirement for you to create custom sizes for your doors. but you will have to create custom sizes for your windows. So again, I've listed in the window schedule here, so the type name in each case is going to be that. So what you're going to do is duplicate an existing one, put the type name in for the duplicate, and physically set the height and the width as per my list here. So, for instance, window number 1, 2 and 3 are all the same. Okay, so you only need to create one new type for that one, and then place 3 of them. So I'll just escape from the door tool, zoom in, click window, in the type selector, select double hung 3LT. Okay, select the only type you've got there, and then go to edit type and duplicate. Type in the new name for the window, so it's a DH 1821. So DH standing for double hung. Okay, click OK, and then just adjust the height and the width. So that in this case the height is 1800 and the width is 2170.
You can press OK. That's the first one, then you just go and adjust the rest.
Yeah, so once you've created that first window size, that DH 1821, you can then actually physically place it in these locations. So it's windows 1, 2 and 3. Yeah, okay, I think most of you by now have added your doors and windows in. Now the thing is that with the doors, I guess I haven't given you an exact position for those, but I guess I would work on about 100 mil. So work on about 100 mil from the adjacent wall if you can. Okay, so for door positioning, some of the doors themselves you can actually do a snap middle, an SM, and snap it to the middle of the wall. In some cases, most cases, I think you should be able to sort of set them at 100, albeit this one is 65, this one is 100. I'm not too fussed about the doors themselves. That one's 100. Now with your windows, of course, to get your windows in position, as I said earlier, you can run a series of dimensions across them. I'd like to show you a quick way of doing that, okay, which we did touch on in our last session. Now, this will apply also to dimensions that pick up on intersecting walls, these ones here, and also windows. So I'm just going to delete that dimension, okay. Now, you may or may not remember this, and it doesn't matter if you don't remember it, because the way we traditionally add dimensions is by what we call individual reference, whereby you pick the object that you want to dimension.
Yep.
Okay, so you're happy with that? Okay. Now, with individual reference, with your windows, for instance, and doors, typically what you would do is pick the side of the window, so the edge of the window, and only the windows and doors. So that's called individual reference. And that's perfectly acceptable. And in most cases, or in some cases, that's the only way you can do it. However, there is an automatic function, okay, so there's an alternative pick method called entire walls. Now, if you choose entire walls, and let's say I pick this wall here, it will automatically...
It did it for you.
It does it for you. It does it for me automatically because I've actually set up some options here, and I've said that I want to dimension openings. So windows and external doors are classified as openings, and we typically dimension to their widths, okay, not the centre of the window or door. So, and this will also do, if I untick that one, it will also do intersecting walls, which is that one. So what that does is if I pick this wall, see how it produces the dimensions automatically?
Yep.
Okay, and place that set,
There.
and then go back to options, untick that one, tick that one, select widths, click OK, and then pick the wall again, and it picks up the windows and the door.
So
Okay, so how did you get into that little...
Oh, so the thing is that this option is
No,
only
no,
available when you change that from individual reference to entire walls. Okay, it's not. See how that's greyed out there? If I change that to entire walls, I have access to this options box.
I haven't got an options box there. I must have had the wrong...
Yeah. So again, I'll just clear that. So align dimension, wall faces, entire walls, and then options. So you don't do both, but you can do one or the other, depending on what you want to create. Now this is called auto dimensioning, okay? Now it will work on straight walls like this, but when you get a situation like this where you've got that wall then takes a turn and goes down there and across there, it's better to do individual picking in this scenario here, okay? It works better on complete walls like that, so single walls like that, and that. But it can also work, if I go back to intersecting walls, it can also work on internal walls, like that. Okay, so it can see how it's produced that set automatically, just by picking that wall there. So it's just a very quick way of generating a series of dimensions based on picking a wall that has intersecting walls. Now, having done that, I guess, having done that, I'll move those dimensions down again. So we then use this dimension set to locate the windows and the doors, or door. All right, so with your windows, for instance, once you've got your dimensions in place, whether you place them doing by auto dimensioning or you place them by individual reference, once they're in place, what you then do is systematically select each window and door, and in selecting the window, for instance, you can then update the dimension here in this case. So this one needs to be 910. So once that window is in place, we then deselect that one and then go to the next window. So select the toilet window here, and the distance between this window and this window is this dimension here, which needs to be 1250. Okay. once you've done that, once that's now in the correct location, just deselect it, click away from it, and then go to the next window. Go to window 8. So the distance between 7 and 8 is this one here. So that one then becomes, or is, 630. Okay, then deselect, and then select your door. So the distance between window 8 and door 1 is 750, so that's actually correct. So we can clear that. Then window 6, so the distance between window 6 and door 1 is this distance here, which is 50. And then finally, window 5, and that measurement there needs to be 1716. So, providing you've got all your window widths are correct, you should arrive at 1250 for this last dimension, okay, along the northern wall. So once you've done that, you can then add your dimensions to the eastern wall and establish the position of that window. And for your windows 1, 2 and 3 and door 2, I would suggest that you still use aligned dimensions, but in this case actually go back to individual reference, and then just very carefully pick the sides of the windows. So just the windows and door number 2. Okay, this wall face here, and then window 3 either side. And then place that dimension set down here. Okay, and then selecting window 1, just update the dimension down here, 1305. Select window 2, and the distance between 1 and 2 needs to be 1570, this one here. Door number 2 is 805, so that's correct. And window number 3 finally, so just either update this one or this one, it doesn't really matter, so I'll do this one at 950. And finally I'll just add a quick set of dimensions for window 4 just by individual reference. And that one's 2880. Okay, and what I'll do is I'll just finally I'll just move that dimension set out again. All right, so we've now put all our doors and windows in. Now, just before we move on to the floor and the roof, I just want you to switch to a 3D view. Okay, switch to a 3D view. Now, are your windows all at the correct head height of 2100? Okay, so how do we get them there? Filter. So to filter, we have to select. And to select, we drag a window around the entire building.
So from left to right, right to left, doesn't matter?
In this case, I would go from left to right. Selection of window, just over the building. go up to the filter button up here
Yep.
and untick doors and walls and then click OK.
Levels as well, untick levels.
Yes, if you've selected levels, untick levels.
So just,
So that just leaves your windows selected. Now if you come over to the properties over here, you'll see head height over here. Now there won't be anything in there because all the head heights are different, but click into the cell here next to head height and put in 2100, 2100.
Why?
and enter.
You can enter, yep,
I haven't got an apply. Oh, yeah.
or click apply, yep, or just move over into the view. Okay, so then now all the windows are now at 2100. So this is a step that students tend to miss in the assessment task. Okay, so
Will you say in the assessment task, change window heights to 2100?
in the assessment task, you'll have a line or a statement in the student instructions to say set windows to 2100, head height to 2100. Just to remind you, but of course there won't be anyone to show you how to do it. All right. So just before we move on, let's return to the floor level view, floor plan. Now, just coming back to the document here. Now, I just an error has been detected in my dimensions, and I thank Daniela for that. That's why we have students. Now, yes, I've got this window 1 here dimensioned at 2170 on this page, which is correct. But on the final page, it's actually dimensioning out at 2120. So what I've done is I've actually sort of this actual dimension here is just slightly incorrect. So I'll fix that up as soon as I can. So if anyone's watching the recording, just be mindful that the dimension, this one is incorrect on the final plan, but this one here is correct at 2170. Okay, and 1570 is correct here. Okay, so just also on this page, note the opening dash door, this one here. Okay, so this is an opening through the window, an opening through the wall here.
Oh, yep.
So we have to include that as well, and that's that position of that one is 450 from the inside of this wall. Okay. Now I'll just show you quickly how to find that one and put that one in.
How do we get back into not 3D?
Just click on the floor plan, floor level view, floor plans, floor level. Now the opening dash door, you will be required to put a couple of those in the assessment task. Okay. Now these are treated a little bit differently. They're not, although it has the word door in it, they're not technically a door. Okay. So step 1, and they're not part of the standard template. So step 1 is to actually insert the family. Now again, if you're looking for all your folders, scroll down and click the metric link here. Now the opening dash door you'll find in the openings folder. Okay, so it's not a door, it's an opening. This is it here. This is the family, opening dash door.
So right family or just?
load family.
And then
So,
Library openings.
so the thing is, with this one, this is not a door, so don't click the door tool, okay, and do load family. Just do a load family.
So it's the third one down.
The third one down, yeah. So open that one, or load it into the project.
do we go under doors or not?
No, openings.
Some or all of the family files you selected cannot be loaded. You must choose family files. The category doors do
Yeah.
not to a try loading.
Yeah.
Just click yes.
No, the thing is that this is not a door,
It's an opening.
so you don't click door, okay? Now, I guess the thing is that best practice, and the way that I operate Revit is that I don't, when I'm loading in a door family, I don't click the door tool. If I'm loading in a window family, I don't click the window tool. I go straight to insert. If I'm loading any family into a project, I go straight to insert and click load family, okay? And as I say, this particular opening dash door is in the openings folder. It's this one here.
We do open it.
Yeah, just open it, loads it into the project. Now, to actually physically place that opening in the wall, you go to the architecture tab, and this time you go to component. All right, so it's classified as a component. It'll come up in the type selector. In this case, you don't have to create a new type, but in the assessment task, you probably will. Okay, so it's no different to creating a type of any other window or door. So just accept the type here. I think there are a few different types, but the 915 by 2134 is the one we need. So just come over to the wall itself, click to place, and then just you can probably just click directly on the dimension, the temporary dimension, and put in the 450, which is the offset. Or if you've hit the escape or clicked modify, just select the opening again and then just update the temporary dimension. That's probably the quickest way to do it. Okay?
So that's 450 plus 17.
So that's a 915 by 2134. So that's what I've specified there. Okay, and as I say, it's 450 from the inside wall here.
So click on the wall again to replace it.
No, if you have to reposition it, just click directly on the opening and update the temporary dimension.
It's 450.
450.
And then I've got 715 on the other side.
So just click on temporary dimension and type in 450.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got too big a number on the other side. 755. I've got 710.
So then click away. Perfect.
Yeah, I would just, don't worry about this dimension down here. This is, I guess, if this wall's in the correct position, then, so it would depend on if that wall's in the correct position. So
I've got a little circle with it's like a no smoking sign. That's it.
yeah, I think in my case, I made another mistake. So, sorry, my apology, that wall there should actually be 4800.
So you click on the wall or on the window.
And sorry, the opening, if I change that to 450 now, is that better?
Yeah.
So 450 and 455?
That's right.
Yeah. It was only because that wall was not in the correct position. Okay.
What do you want to add?
It should be 448.
Trace to the outside, like we did last week.
Yeah, okay, so working in the floor level floor plan, just zoom in relatively close and go up to the architecture tab and click the floor button.
Extend wall to core.
So you're going to untick extend into wall to core, untick that option. And then when you select the wall, just sort of move towards the outside of the wall before you pick to add the sketch line to the outside of the wall. And just continue sketching the outside. And then once you've finished your sketch, just green tick to finish. And once you've done that, I'll get you then to just move up to the ceiling level, and we'll have a look at putting the roof on. Now, just before I do that, I just want to briefly explain something about the eave overhang. So, if I can just have your attention. Now, with the eave overhang, and what I'll do is I'm just going to draw in a couple of lines to represent the eave overhang, just to try and explain a concept here. Now, I'm just going to use detail lines, and I'll just draw a detail line out here, and a detail line here. Now I'm just going to just put a dimension across here and one up here. And I'm just going to change the scale, sorry, go the other way, just to make those dimensions smaller. Now, with regard to the roof, and I'll just go back up to the instructions here, with regard to the roof, okay, in the ceiling level, add a roof by footprint using the type basic roof generic 125. Set the pitch to 22.5 degrees and the eave overhang to 600 for all roof sections. So the 600 is actually measured from the outside wall face to the inside of the fascia. Okay, so that's where we get our eave overhang measurement. Now, in Revit, when you add a roof, and I'll just do it here. So back to architecture. When we add the roof, one of the options is this one here, which is extend to wall core. Okay. Now, when we add the roof, we actually tick that option, but we don't tick it for the actual floor itself. Now, the question is, what is the wall core, and what does this mean? Okay. Now, when it comes to roofs, this option here will determine the pitching point of the roof in relation to the wall itself. Okay. Now, using that option, so we have to tick that option when we create the roof. What I'll do is I'll actually exit this. So the distance between the outside wall face and the fascia is 600. Now, when we, to achieve a distance of 600 between there and there, when we tick that option to extend to the wall core, the actual core of the wall is it is, yeah, towards the middle, but it's actually, if I can get it, it's actually here. And I'm just going to put a reference plane there if I can get it. Okay. So I'll get in nice and close. So when we talk about the core of the wall, or the core boundary, see where the reference plane is running through?
Just off centre.
Yeah, it's actually the core of the wall in this case is running along the timber frame. Okay.
On the inside of the timber frame.
On the inside of the timber frame. So that's the core of the wall in this case. Now the other core boundary, okay, now I guess when we had our quick look at the changing the wall type in our last session, we changed the cavity to 40 mil, and I think Liz, you asked about the core boundaries.
Yeah.
So in this particular wall type, the two core boundaries are here and here. So they are either side of the timber frame, which is the structural component of this wall type. So in brick veneer construction, the structural part of the wall itself is the timber frame. It's not the brick. Okay? So the core boundary is actually placed either side of the actual main part of the wall, which is the timber frame. Now, when we tick or untick that option to go to the core boundary, it's this one here. That's what it's referring to. So in the case of our floor, if we actually keep that option ticked, the floor will actually be produced to this line here, which is the inside face of the frame. If we untick it, the floor goes out to the outside face of the brick wall. Okay. In the case of the roof, if we tick that option, it means the roof is actually pitched at this point here. So the roof is pitching on the inside face of the timber frame, which is technically where it should pitch if it's a conventional roof. Now, I guess the thing is that a lot of this theory, a lot of this roof theory will come in your other subjects when you learn about timber framing, mainly. So again, roofs can be created in two ways, or three ways actually. You've got timber and steel. When it comes to timber framing, you can either have roof trusses or conventional roofing. So we're talking about conventional roofing here, but without going sort of in too deep at the moment, when we calculate the eave overhang, and I'll move that up here, when we calculate the eave overhang, it's actually measured from the core.
The external face of the core.
Yeah, so that's where the eave overhang is measured if we tick extend to core. So to achieve a clear dimension of 600, from face to eave, we have to include the brick and the cavity. So the brick is 110, and of course the cavity is 40. So that's a little bit hard to see, but okay, so you've got 110 and 40. So added to the 600 is the 110 plus the 40, giving us 750. So when we actually specify the eave overhang, we have to put in 750, not 600, because we have to include that the brick and the cavity. Okay. So I guess it depends on what wall type you're using. So if it happened to be brick veneer 250, it would be 110 plus 50 plus 600, which would be 760. So because this is 240, we've got 110, 40 and 600, it becomes 750. So does that make sense? So I guess the thing is you just have to think about, okay, well, what's the distance between the core and the outside wall face of the wall, and include that or add that to the overall dimension for the eave overhang. Okay, so what we then do is we jump up to the ceiling level. So just open up the ceiling level view. Okay, I'll just get rid of these two reference planes. And as we did in the previous exercise, we're going to create a roof by footprint. So roof by footprint. So the from the split button at the bottom here, so roof by footprint, which is the default here. We're going to change the roof type to a 125, generic 125 over here. We're going to extend to core, and we're going to put in the overhang as 750.
Sorry, Russell, is that easier if I'll take that and just say 600? What's going to happen if I do that?
If you leave that at 600, it's going to, the eave overhang is going to be 600 less 150.
Yeah, but if I untick that.
Oh, if you untick that, it will be 600.
So,
because what happens is that the pitching point moves from the core to the outside wall face.
yeah. So is that easier to do that one?
No, because that's not technically correct for conventional roofing. Okay, so we have to sort of think about the correct pitching point for the roof itself. Question?
Can you alter that afterwards? Can you adjust your...
No, you can't. Having said that, well, yeah, if you don't tick that option, I don't think you can actually re-tick it afterwards. You might have to actually then delete the roof and regenerate it.
And what about just the eaves?
The eave overhang you can change, but that option there has to be ticked to begin with. Yeah.
So the extent to wall core is ticked.
Yeah, so it is ticked, and we put in 750.
So then we go and select all of our.
Yeah, so what you can do then is you can just pre-select the first wall, hit the tab key, I think, or can you?
No.
Oh yeah, there you go. So if you set that up, if you click into the view and then pre-select the wall and hit the tab key, it will actually put your sketch lines all the way around, all at once.
Press that, don't click.
Sits in the place, but you've managed to get rid of your other one.
I don't know where it is.
Hang on, just remind me, see. It's the browser.
So I've done something wrong. Broken it.
Okay.
Don't break these here.
Define slopes, now we make it 22%, what are we?
Yeah, so once you've put your sketch lines in, what you'll then do is do a chain selection of your sketch lines. So you need to select them all. Change the slope or the pitch over here to 22.5.
So to select all, we just do
Yeah, just mouse over the first one and hit the tab key and then release and then click.
tab key
I got a
and
thing in
release,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, and then change the pitch to 22.5.
It's all correct.
Pitch.
Or slope.
I got a roof.
Not
Slide.
raining. Oh, if it's raining, you say?
Okay.
Sunny.
This is too small.
I've got to go back and change my
Change the
pitch though. How do you change the pitch?
I do it.
Okay, so can I get you to change the, where the building protrudes here, can I get you to change that to a gable? Okay, so yes, we're changing this part of the roof to a gable. So to do that, you just select on the single sketch line, okay, just this sketch line, and untick define slope. This one here.
So, how do we get that view back? I'm in ceiling level, but I've got a blue roof there. Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
then tick it.
Yeah. So yeah, if you've already produced the roof, you'll need to select it and then edit the footprint, which takes you back to here. But essentially what you need to do is select that sketch line and untick this option here, define slope. Okay, and then click the green tick and then produce the roof. Okay, now if you just have a look at your 3D view, your roof is on now, and just to finish off, we're nearly at the end of today's session. So just to finish off, do you remember how to actually fix up this wall?
Fill to ceiling.
So select the wall, attach top to base, and select the roof.
And then also the cut plane.
Going back to the ceiling level, the cut plane in the ceiling level, this is not really required, but it's just something we did in the previous exercise. The cut plane is under the extents area, and it's within the view range settings. This one here, view range, and cut plane. So what we did was we lifted that cut plane to something closer to the top primary range, which is this one here. So I guess if you just move it up to 2200, you're pretty well covered there. And what that does is it just shows you the entire roof itself. Yeah, so just the final thing we need to do is just change the overhang, the verge, this part of the roof to 300. So select the roof itself, edit the footprint, and then select the sketch line, this one here, and it's just a case of just using the temporary dimension here, click on it and change it to 300, and that pulls that sketch line closer to the building.
I thought 450 now.
Is it-
Because it's a 300, but because we have sticks that extend into the wall. No?
It's not pitching, the roof's not pitching from there. The
So
roof's pitching
300
from the
you said?
outside.
300.
Have a look at your 3D model.
Yeah, I know which one. But
And
then,
then, so basically the roof is not pitching from that core, it's pitching from those side walls up.
Yeah.
okay.
Oh,
That's why
Yeah.
it's measured from the outside of the wall to the
Yeah.
fascia.
Yeah, that's correct. So so it's so that temporary dimension is actually measuring from the fascia to the wall, so that's fine. If we select one of these sketch lines, you'll see that how the temporary dimension is measuring 600.
yeah.
Okay, so that's good. I mean, if that was to be 450, we could type that in as 450. Now, if I select that sketch line that's selected, although it's 450 over here, see how it's 600 over here, the overhang? So it's still being measured from the core, okay, according to Revit, but we can use the temporaries to, if I change that to 600, it then updates this to 750. So it's still including the core? Yeah, okay, that makes sense. All right, so 300 here, that's good. So finish, okay, and 3D view, and that's what we've done so far. So in our next session, we'll add the barge board fascias and gutters, and then we'll start looking at setting it up to put on a sheet. Okay, so we'll start adding some annotation. Room names, just tidying up the dimensioning, and
Why is my 3D view showing a brick on one side but it's not?
Are we going to be doing much more to it today?
no, that's fine. Just you do a final save, and then close any open views, and then just close your project. Okay, so we'll pick this up in our next session. All right, so thanks everyone. We'll see you then.